Yo guys, what's good? As here once again with another Exos video, and as promised I bring you the guide to the core rate for all the difficulties. So if you enjoy my content, consider subscribing, and with all that said, let's get into it. Alright, so as you can see from this image, I didn't clear Ramge in the first go, which kind of surprised me because the mechanics are interesting to the least to say. So let's quickly go over the abilities and then I show you what I've done with them. All of them have this passive that grants immunity to reflect damage and status effect, debuffs and mark effects. This is the mark effects is kind of hurtful. I wish they would kind of group first guardian passive into something else than marks, because the marks also hurts like one of the most important marks, which is focus, which is kind of sad because we will get into it why that could be so important. So dimensional barrier grants 2% of own maximum health for one round at the beginning of a round, every round 2% more, and then when the round starts, attack defense increases by 50% and that stacks every round. So every round, just for you to know, is when a full rotation of heroes had his turn. So every time he gets his turn, but not if he resets his abilities. So then he deals 225% damage to one enemy, and this is important. I didn't read this fully. The turn resets when the skill hits, not kills, but hits, and this is pretty important. Same here, to 525 damage to one enemy, and turn resets when the skill hits. In all honesty, Baraka is fairly easy. He doesn't have too much life. You can just burst him with almost everything. Just make sure to bring some of the Dark Stone breakers in the beginning. This one is a little bit harder than the last one. The last one we had a Fire Guardian Stone, and honestly there's so many more good fire heroes than there are dark heroes. Okay, so Ramge. He also has this passive and then deals 225% to one enemy. That is fine. And then 133 to all enemies. And oh, this can be quite a hassle. His abilities have fairly low mana cost with this 1 and 3. And he can chain that super quickly. Yeah, that is kind of harsh for us. And then Shufraken, he 2% as well, so that is all the same. And then 300 damage and 210. I honestly had an easier time with Shufraken than I had with Ramge. I have no idea why. It just took longer, but I feel like against Ramge I had a tougher time. No idea why. Anyway, this is the team I ended up using for Shufraken, and it worked out pretty damn well. I have to admit, it is all due FC Leppen. I used an FC here because I didn't want to unequip her. The rest is all regular heroes. Even my Reed Marie, who I usually have at FC, she's at normal pace, but because you can see I have fairly low of these things, I actually needed to buy some with Zest to actually make this guide. I couldn't waste too many things to basically go through. You can clear this without FC Leppen. FC Leppen just makes this easier, and for that, if you run without her, I explain what you should do. Okay, so let's start with yeah, the hard one, I guess. That is the easiest one, and everybody should be able to do that without problems. Alrighty, so This one we speed up to 2x speed. There's nothing too much to explain. It's fairly short. It's around 2 minutes when we speed that up. And the team that I used here was just an experimental team where I wanted to go with Wilkes. What's his name? I don't know. Then Liffy? My beloved Astarte, and Reed Marie. Here I actually used FC Reed Marie, but it makes no difference at all. The S1 ability is a little bit better than on the regular Marie, but it doesn't matter. Nurmush, that's his name. Right, so I took those just because I wanted to break as quickly as possible, and you can see that we're just one break away, so we do that with Liffy. And everything is now in bursty mode. If you are a little bit weaker than my teams, then it's probably better if you try to go for 2 breaks. So don't burst immediately, bring him to like around there to skip a phase. But if you're using a starter, then it doesn't matter too much, but you definitely don't want to bring too many other heroes than Darkness. Just Darkness is so hard to break over time. So as you can see here, nothing special. I destroyed him pretty quickly, and the side minions actually survived because I brought so much single target. Okay, so that is done. So this was the team I ended up for Ramge, and in all honesty, neither Reed Marie nor Benton would have been necessary at all. I thought that I might need Reed Marie for breaking the blue stones at the end pretty like consistently, but it didn't end up to be that mandatory. And here also Benton, I tried him out because usually his burst is pretty good, but I forgot that it's only AoE. So in an AoE scenario, really nice. So for secret dungeons and stuff. But for single target, yeah, you want to bring somebody else. Who to bring in a substitution case? Instead of Reed Marie, bring Kirina. Instead of Benton, bring maybe Naomi. Naomi would be pretty good because she helps you survive a lot more with the share health, and she's also a green unit. In case you're wondering why I didn't bring any of my like damage over time units for Darkness in here, like Liffy or Wilkes, which I usually use. And the reason is I believe that his passive still kicks in because he cleansed off the frostbite. If you can see, like he just cleanses it off. And that makes it definitely harder, so I felt like whatever, I don't use them. Here, if I had Kirina, I would have bursted through probably half of his life already. And yeah, now we move into the blue phase already. And it is pretty good that I have Reed Marie here, but she died, and without Lepin that would have been a no-go. But if you had Kirina, that would be better. Now, why is Ramge so difficult in respect to all the other units? And the simple reason is that his 3 mana ability hurts like hell. I don't know why, but I feel like even Shufraken didn't hit for as much as Ramge. And yeah, bringing more burstier damage would definitely be nice. In case you don't have Reed Marie or you don't want to use her, Monica would be pretty much the better replacement. She has a 3-turn. Alright, so we cleared that one out. Let's skip to the next one. So Monica has a 3-turn debuff using a slightly different strategy where you clear out darkness and then you go in with a full frost team. So you go in with Bernadette, she's pretty good. Kirina, you go in with Monica, Lepin, and whatever burster you have. I would choose a starter all the time. And then you burst through both of the phases when you break. So you break to a point where you get almost done with the blue phase and then only single target the side minions. And once you break again with Monica or something, then you burst through the entire green phase through and be done with it. Takes two rounds, but it's fine. So now for Shufraken, I decided to bring Liffy in again because she's actually a pretty amazing breaker, and with the right equipment she also deals some decent damage. She has 200 something piercing damage, which is like 350-ish damage, so it's not that bad. And most of us have her anyway, so why not? Then I brought Adams again, and I feel that FC Lepin is kind of your key to do it in a one rotation, just because her S1 has the damage immunity. That is the major part, because otherwise you're just losing your units way too quickly. If you don't have FC Lepin at all, then I wouldn't go with this strategy. I would do exactly the same what I explained just now. Bring dark units, break, get him out of the dark phase as much into the blue phase as possible, die, doesn't matter, and then in the blue phase with the 4 units I mentioned before and clear through him. That's probably the most sound strategy. I just want to show off that you can do this raid without any faded heroes. Granted, I'm using a Fade Core, but it's not necessary at all. I just didn't have enough Levy Stones anymore, so I actually needed to buy some to show off this content in the first place. So that's why I used FC Lepin, because I didn't want to go 2 rotations or something, because it's pretty costly. And yeah, if you can skip the blue phase, FC Reed Marie again is not needed. Bring somebody that does more damage, or is of a green element. So in case you either don't want to use Reed Marie, or you already can skip through the blue phase, then bring Naomi instead. Naomi is a great unit, helps you speed this up a little bit more. You don't necessarily need a second blue unit. Lepin is more than enough. And I will show you the gear after we finish this up. Alright, so we did this, and the reward for clearing him is pretty good for the first time. So let's go over the units that I actually use. I will skip Benton. He's not necessary because he didn't even do much. Obviously, if you have better units, one fantastic unit is FC Otard. She just deals a lot of damage. Some of you might have gotten Rara. She is so helpful here because of the shield. Bathory has massive amounts of damage. If you have Bathory and Olum, you can do the usual Bathory to rats, Bathory Olum, and clear it out that way. But we all know that Ramge would be a pretty decent unit, frontliner, protects your entire team and deals dark damage, so he is pretty good. Then let's go over Astartes gear. So you can see she's full faded, has 3 blue, 3 green stones. None of her gear is 60 besides the weapon. Her stats are like this: around 2200 attack. These are the rest of the stats. And she is actually, as you can see here from the counter, she is unleashed potential, so I did that for her. So she has a counter 3 for her to get more mana. Her spinning attack deals still 420 damage because I didn't put the points into that yet, but I will at some point. And then the insane multiplier of 1050 with a burst. So yeah, I don't expect many people to have this. She's probably my hardest hitter, even at that level. I don't think, like, maybe Otard could compete if there's a stunned unit, but I doubt it. Just, yeah, I doubt it that she could compete with that. Then my Lepin, she has a shield set, which just helps for surviving. I use her mostly in PvE or in tag team if there's no Iris, so the light set is pretty good, and the fire set just also reduces damage by quite a good amount, which is awesome. And because of that, I didn't need another faded piece here because I'm not getting a bonus anyway. So her stats, you can see here, nothing too special because most of her gear is just at 40. I didn't bother to increase that. If you have the Big Daddy Shufraken himself, he would be an insane unit to just bring. And simply for the fact he has thrust himself, the Fear of the Abyss will not do anything, but he will also gain a lot of mana and is able to use this ability and this all the freaking time. The debuff, I don't think it will apply, so because it's not damage over time. It would be great if it was, but I don't think it will apply. But he's still a really good unit just because of the thrust, and with that he will break 2 stones anyway. You can bring Iris. Iris I actually brought one time against Ramge, and just for the shield here. The shield is pretty good at helping you survive. It gives you more mana, which is pretty good, but she's not necessary at all. A good substitute if you have Valar, if you need another damage dealer just because she has a 750 multiplier. If you have FC Deva, this ability hits pretty hard, especially with the crit damage. The debuff will also not apply, but it hits insanely hard because she will increase her critical damage by double, and it's a mark that applies to herself, so that is pretty good. FC Annie, if you have her, she would be an amazing unit, and I will show off the optimal team in my opinion that you can run to clear this out super quickly. Then yeah, I won't show off Benton. If you have Baelish, FC Baelish here, he is your best Darkbreaker if you have him, I wouldn't bother bringing any other dark unit. He alone with this ability does all you need. Like, he breaks the stones in 5 turns and you just go. So that is pretty good. Tirina, another pretty hard hitter, 840. Unfortunately, no burst. So yeah, I will show up here. So that is Reed Marie's gear. As you can see, pieces at 30. Nothing special whatsoever. I just used her for breaking. That's it. Liffy, 50-50, 30 through the bank. And I used her for breaking as well. Nurmish could be a good replacement for a dark unit if you have him built up, because he deals the 700% damage. But he has no burst, nothing. So Adams would definitely be preferred because he has a burst. And the counter, if you use him, try to get him to 6-star just to deal more damage. And lastly, which unit did I want to show off? Give me a second. Rudley would be pretty amazing. Again, 750% burst ability. Don't worry to bring Gar. Ignore the command mark. And then Naomi. She is one of the newer heroes, so if you use her, she gets to heal over time for herself. And the provoke doesn't do anything, but the heal over time is pretty good. Then here's a pretty decent hitting ability. And this one is just so good because it increases her defense, so makes her less likely to get killed, and shares health, which basically just distributes the damage a little bit differently. So that is pretty good. Those were the units, and now let's get into the last thing that I want to show. In an optimal case, if you have the units, what I would run would be something like this. This is pretty stacked, but this would basically make it so you deal like tons of damage. For Otard, you actually I wouldn't use Otard. Let me bring somebody else. Maybe Olum just for the quicker stone breaks after dark phase, but she's not necessary, so I would bring maybe Rachel. Maybe Rachel for the attack buff. Maybe her. Probably Rudley. Rudley would be pretty good, or her. So the 2 Dragonblood units in the front is a little bit annoying. So maybe this one. Yeah, this one. So you don't need the burst here. Her burst is good, but you don't need it all the time. The mana is pretty important, and those are your 3 heroes you actually deal quite a lot of the damage with. If you are stuck at the blue phase, like, that's where she comes in. And yeah, like, I would go with this and just completely go ham wire. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed it, and if so, consider subscribing, leave a like, share it with everybody so they can know that this is possible without crazy units. You just need to have them at a decent gear level, and yeah, then you can do this with just rares and legendaries, no problem. With all that said, it was a pleasure to have you here, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, enjoy the grind.